Imagine a place so bad, so terribly awful, where if a bad thing can happen, it will happen. All of the world's worst things happen in this one area. That's right, I'm talking about Stoke-on-Trent. Or, if you're American, Los Angeles. Marvel Ruins is an idea, a what-if scenario where if everything bad could happen, what if it did happen? What would that look like? Today we're gonna learn about Marvel's worst universe. Marvel Ruins Comics explains the worst Marvel universe.
Is like the worst case situation, right? Like you sit down and you ask a question, you're like, hey, how bad could things possibly get in the Marvel universe? And then like you ask that question and somebody says, well, here, read Marvel Ruins, and you'll find out. Like it.
So for people that don't read the comics like myself, this is like going to Birmingham in the UK.
It is bad. Like it is so messed up. So this all comes from the perspective of a guy named Philip Sheldon. What this does is it initially kind of gives us like this opening perspective, right? Like it kind of starts with the idea of the Avengers, in the sense that what you had is you had Tony Stark, who was going to put his mind to task, and he was going to like basically end the whole like conflict in Vietnam and all that kind of good stuff. And like much like the main Marvel universe, he was, he went overseas, he was captured, and he basically created the Iron Man suit, and he came back to the United States. The difference here is that he and the other Avengers basically helped to try to allow California to secede from everybody. And
what? I didn't know that's where it went. Oh, I'm so excited for this. This is going to be really fun. Why are they doing that? They want California to secede from the US? What a weird place to start. Why would California even want to do that? Okay, well, I actually understand. This is a real movement in real life. There are Californians that want to secede from the United States, which is really weird. It's like the opposite of the Texas movement, where there's also Texans that think, well, I think that we should leave the United States, brother, because we're good on our own. And then they have one blizzard, and then they're like, oh no, our power grid has completely shut down, and we are at your mercy. I don't know, why does California want to do that? What's the reason?
They failed. Like like they literally tried to help like an insurrection basically in the United States, and it all came crashing down. And the result was that Tony Stark, alongside all the other Avengers, basically died. But it gets crazy.
What?
It gets crazier. Okay, so from here, we switch over to Philip Sheldon going to a bar. And I remember,
dude, I need to know the reason. I hope he explains the reason. Why would Captain America be like, actually, I should be a traitor to America now? I think that being a traitor will be so cool because California is so pog. I love it when it's really hot outside, and I love cities that you can't walk in, that you have to drive in. It's awesome when you can't walk anywhere.
He's documenting how, quote unquote, everything went wrong, about how everything went all screwed up. But we get these small little tidbits here and there. For example, you pick up with like the atomic truck crash that basically gave Daredevil his enhanced senses when it blinded him. In Ruins, it kills him. Like he just dies. Like it's like he dies in a pretty horrific way. Basically just like radiation and chemical burns end up killing him. But Philip Sheldon goes to this bar and he basically encounters like Wolverine. But Wolverine, like with regards to how his whole situation works, instead of him having adamantium and then basically having like adamantium claws that give him like all kinds of crazy abilities, he has those, but like it's basically poisoning his bones. So imagine what you saw in the film Logan, but imagine that it's always been that way. And not only that, like he's got like these nasty scars and like these protrusions and different things like that. And it's kind of crazy because the local barkeep kind of uses him as like a sort of side
freak show,
basically. Like, hey man, like dude, show this guy your scars, like show him how screwed up you are, and I'll give you a drink. And
oh, dude, you can see his bones and everything. That's mad. I mean, I guess it's just more like a realistic version of what would happen. Oh my God, Marvel Ruins is just normal real life without the fantastical superheroes. It's like, oh, a nuclear bomb went off and you got radiation powers. Well, in the real world, you would just like your skin would fall off and you would melt and die. So that's what happens now. Oh, you have cool adamantium skeleton. Well, it's metal, so it's poisoning your body. Also, you have scars everywhere because you have claws coming out you. Well, now you have scars. And they're all over the place, and you don't heal.
Like he does, like he shows, Philip Sheldon how screwed up he is. And so like the barkeep gives him a drink and like that's it. Like that's all you get from him. But it's like small things here and there. Like for example, like Black Panther T'Challa actually joined the Black Panther organization, and he alongside like Bobby Seale and Huey Newton are just serving time in a San Francisco prison. Hawkeye was shot in the head. Scarlet Witch was actually the one who betrayed the Avengers. Like she turned state's witness. So the idea was that she was part of the Avengers team.
Scarlet Witch turned state's witness? Okay, I didn't imagine that's the way that she would go. She's like a witch that has magical powers. She can do cool things. She's really powerful. And she just like turns them into the authorities. That's kind of a weird way to take it.
But when the federal government was trying to find a way to basically crack down on the Avengers and end the insurrection, like she basically sided with the federal government. She told them everything they wanted to know. And the result was that during the whole
She's a fan.
The Avengers were basically like helping to launch the secession in California, their Quinjet was shot down by the federal government using a Patriot missile, and that's what killed them all. So like Scarlet Witch was the one that got them all killed. But from here,
wow.
like, we switch over to Nevada, basically like to a nuclear testing site. And this is bonkers. So what we end up finding out here is the federal government has basically built like a giant encampment here. And inside this encampment is the Kree race, and or at least what's left of the Kree race. Like those.
Oh, the Kree race isn't that the ones that kind of, they're in Captain Marvel and they can turn into like humans, or they can disguise themselves as humans and they're like an alien race. I'm pretty sure they're the ones in Captain Marvel and they're kind of important in that whole area. Yeah.
Those individuals who traveled to Earth. And it's really, really screwed up because the adults know why they're there because like they were captured, you know, by the American people.
No, that's the Skrulls. Oh, never mind. These are the Guardians of the Galaxy guys. That's like from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Yeah, they're like blue skins and all that. And all right, so now that we know that they are.
But like kids are born inside this camp and they don't know why they're there. And so Philip Sheldon basically makes his way in after being allowed by the various soldiers who of course are wearing radiation suits. And we end up finding out that he's actually meeting with Mar-Vell of the Kree race. Now in the main Marvel universe, the way this played out is Mar-Vell was tasked by the Supreme Intelligence to lead an invasionary force against the planet Earth. And then ultimately Mar-Vell turned against the Kree and became a superhero on Earth. And that's what led to like Rog, the enemy of Mar-Vell, basically becoming, you know, the two of them becoming mortal enemies. But basically he was a superhero on Earth, fighting alongside the Avengers and fighting on behalf of humanity against.
Oh, Mar-Vell is the original Captain Marvel. He's just a guy. Okay.
In this story, it doesn't happen that way. Instead, what we end up finding out here is that the mission parameters of the Kree were still the same in the sense that they were tasked with traveling to Earth. The difference was that along the way, they basically encountered the Silver Surfer. And the idea here was that the Silver Surfer, you know, Norrin Radd, after being turned into the Silver Surfer by Galactus, had basically gone insane. Because of the fact that he was so used to being a mortal being who basically breathed oxygen, once that transformation happened, he literally lost his mind in an effort to try to breathe again and like tore open his insides and just died of shock in space.
That's not completely out of the realm of possibility, right? I thought the Silver Surfer was in DC for some reason, but no, he's in Marvel. I thought the Silver Surfer was also like really strong. Damn, Galactus clearly didn't pick the right person. As soon as he turns him into the Silver Surfer to announce Galactus's approach to certain areas, he goes completely insane and rips his body open. Christ.
And so because of the fact that he was still like imbued with all this cosmic power, the result was that when the Kree warship showed up and then hovered there for a minute or two, the power cosmic eliminated their cloaking system, which revealed their existence to the world. And in response, the United States started launching nuclear missiles into space. And the result was that like all these Tomahawk missiles just like bombarded the Kree ship, which sent it crashing down to Earth. And those who survived, which only like a tenth of them survived, those.
Oh my God, I can't believe, of course the United States would be like, oh my God, our first interaction with alien life. This changes everything for our planet. Finally, aliens have revealed themselves. Quick, send the missiles up. We need to nuke all of them.
Survived were taken captive to be as much like an example as an experiment. And they're literally just like thrown, you know, in Nevada in like this nuclear testing ground. So basically they're all irradiated with cancer and like they're all going to be dead within like 30 years. The other half of this is that Charles Xavier has become president of the United States. And like,
okay, that's not that bad.
Seclusion. Like you never see Professor X, which I imagine is a kind of an illusion of sorts to FDR in the sense that you never really saw FDR in a wheelchair. You'd see him like sitting down, but you wouldn't really see him rolled out in the general public in a wheelchair. But the idea here is that Philip Sheldon travels to the capital to Washington, D.C., which is essentially just like completely and totally collapsed. Like the city is just a place of destitution and squalor. Like it's
Washington, D.C. is completely collapsed. But at least we still nuked those damn aliens, you know what I mean?
Absolutely heinous. But what he had done is he had secretly written to Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now the crazy thing about this is that much like the main Marvel Universe, Nick Fury's seen and done it all. In the main Marvel Universe, in World War II, Nick Fury led the Howling Commandos, and then they came along they came into contact with the Infinity Serum. And the result was that the Infinity Formula basically granted them immortality so long as they consumed it on I think it was a yearly basis. The issue, and what we found out in Original Sin, was that the Infinity Formula eventually ran out. So all these young versions of Nick Fury that we saw running around the Marvel Universe were actually life model decoys. And the real Nick Fury was just an old guy sitting on a satellite that nobody knew about that was completely cloaked from all forms of detection. And so like that kind of blew the top off the whole Nick Fury thing. But in this story, like he's seen and done it all. Like from his perspective, he's like, look, man, like everything went wrong. Like we don't even know where it went wrong, but like the Avengers are dead. The mutants are basically
we don't know where it went wrong. It might have been around the time where they, for some reason, joined up with California to secede from the United States. I don't know how, guys, But once they got hit with the missile and got exploded, and Captain America's bits and giblies was raining down upon San Francisco's shores, I think it was around about that time where things started to take a nosedive, I think.
Like experiments that are done, like all kinds of things are messed up. One of the other things that happens too is that like Jean Grey just kind of like wanders up to the two of them and is like literally like pimps herself out basically, and is like, hey, I'll do anything you want for like $20. And it's like, God, this is screwed up. Like, man, it's like this is absolutely messed up. Not only that, like the indication here is that she's underage, so like it's in a really dark spot. But of course, Nick Fury, like when he realizes what she's about,
this just feels like Edge for the sake of Edge. But I guess that's kind of the point, right? The entire point of Marvel Ruins is like, this is bad. Everything is bad. Everything you think of is super bad.
He literally just caps her, and like that's the end of Jean Grey. And then
he just shoots her. Oh my God! What the?
From there, he basically turns it on himself, and he's like, dude, I've seen so many screwed up things, and I've seen how like messed up this place is. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And like, that's the end of Nick Fury. And no, so not only that, like what we end up finding out here is that Galactus exists in this universe, but Galactus is just like floating out in Mars. Like he's dead. We don't know what killed him. We don't know what happened to him. We just
God is dead and we killed him. It was probably the nukes. The nukes just like went off course and hit Galactus while he was on his way, and he's like, damn, I guess I'm dead now.
He's not there anymore. Like he's basically just out of the picture. And so at this point, we switch over to Philip Sheldon meeting with, oh my God, Marlo Chandler. Holy cow, Marlo Chandler. And wow, Damon Hellstrom. Those are names I haven't heard in a long time. Marlo Chandler was this chick. She was like super athletic and like a personal trainer or something like that. And she was the girlfriend of Joe Fixit, who was the alternate personality of the Incredible Hulk when he was taking up residency in Vegas and didn't want anybody to know who he was, when he was just like the Gray Hulk. When it came to Damon Hellstrom, okay, so the way this worked out is in Marvel Comics, you've got like different versions of Satan, basically. You've got like Mephisto, you've got Satan himself, like a being who operates as Satan more or less. But the idea is that Damon Hellstrom would be like Satan born in the mortal world, kind of like an heir to the throne or something along those lines. He goes all the way back to like Ghost Rider, and I want to say it's Ghost Rider Volume 2, issue number 3 in like 1973 or something crazy like that. He goes way back. But anyway, like we don't even really get a glimpse of Damon Hellstrom. It's just like this chick who's just like, my son's gonna be the Messiah one day. And so like things are totally screwed up here because Marlo is basically like a smack addict, a junkie. But not only that, we actually get this crazy story from Rick Jones. So in the main Marvel universe, the way the Incredible Hulk story played out originally was that you had the gamma bomb that was gonna be tested by like Bruce Banner and these guys to see what sort of energy sources could be used for with like gamma radiation.
And it explodes, and he's like, oh no, I'm caught in an explosion. And then he gets all the gamma radiation, and he gets really strong and buff, and he turns green. Like, all pretty cool stuff, pretty pog.
And Rick Jones was just this mindless, stupid kid who was literally playing on a banjo in a car at like the testing site, because, you know, I guess it kind of made sense with like all the horns and the countdowns, and hey, this is a cool place to practice music. And so like he
drove out, I would imagine, hundreds of miles into the desert, because they're not testing nuclear bombs in anywhere but the most secluded area on the entire planet. He went out and he was like, you know what? I gotta go out on a trip today. I gotta go out hundreds of miles into the Nevada desert or wherever it was. He's like, I gotta go play my banjo. This is the only place where I can play my banjo because I'm scared that someone else might hear it. So I have to be hundreds of miles away from any civilization whatsoever because I might be a little embarrassed if someone hears my banjo playing before I'm good at it.
So he's sitting in that little area, and Bruce Banner realizes he's there. So Banner goes running out to the testing site and pushes Rick Jones out of the way. Banner's caught in the gamma bomb explosion, and the Incredible
He pushes Rick Jones out of the way from a nuke? How far did he push him? Did he push him into the next state? He said, no, I'm gonna push you, and he just flew off into the stratosphere.
In this story, the event plays out the exact same way. The difference here is that Banner becomes a Hulk, kind of, but not in the same capacity. What ends up happening here is that like once he's basically hit with like all this energy from the gamma bomb, he literally just turns into like this giant mass.
Oh my God.
And it is hideous.
Oh
like,
God.
It is dark and twisted.
Is he still strong?
Out of his head, and like tumors just start exploding out of him. And so like he's giant and green, but he's just like bones protruding, just like this giant hulking mass of just tumors and cancer. And like the idea, or at least the way it's explained by Rick Jones, is that like they keep him alive, and he's actually like in a vault. Like he's in a vault under a lake, and they keep him alive. They test on him, they experiment on him. We never see him after this. Like we never actually find out what happened to him. We just know he's there, or at least.
Oh my God, that reminds me of the guy that was, I think it was, he went into some kind of nuclear reactor to like turn off the nuclear reactor. It might have been Chernobyl or something like that. but afterwards he got alive, and then he just like slowly died over a portion of like 60 days where the radiation just like melted his skin off, but he was alive and he could barely breathe and he couldn't eat, he couldn't move, he couldn't do anything because if someone touched him, like his finger would just like break off because his body was so brittle and dying. And they just kept him alive so they could run tests to see what the radiation did to a body over like 60 days or 90 days. I think there's like a Wendigoon video about it or something like that, but it's absolutely horrible. I couldn't even watch the video because I was so distraught, and I get a little squeamish about this kind of stuff sometimes. I don't like watching operations or, you know, super intense gore unless it's like very clearly fake. If it's like video game gore, it's fine. I could not watch this video. It's so, it freaked me out so much.
Rick Jones says he's there. Not only that, of course, Rick Jones is basically just like drinking morphine just like this jar of morphine, which of course is designed to basically, you know, keep cancer at bay. But like things are rough because like it's stuff like the Punisher. You end up having like Philip Sheldon who's making his way, and the Punisher was basically just gunned down. Now again, we're not really given an explanation there about what
most realistic Punisher.
We assume he was killed by criminals, which makes the most sense. Like
the Punisher without plot armor, where he just like gets shot in a random shootout and he's just dead.
You know, Frank Castle, he's like, I'm gonna wage a war on crime, and it lasts like that. Like it lasts almost no time at all. And he's
that's how it would go.
Split, and like that's the end of him. But then you pick up with like one of the most screwed up parts of it. So after this whole experience, Philip Sheldon's on a plane, and basically he's sitting by next to a woman that he calls Miss Darkholme, who of course is Mystique. But like as soon as like when he sits down, she immediately starts going crazy, right? It's like the scene from Total Recall, you know, 2 weeks, you know, like just starts going nuts, and like her face starts distorting and everything. Come to find out what had happened was that she developed the ability to shapeshift, but because of the fact that she had taken on like the different forms of so many people, it basically gave her multiple personality disorder, and her head literally just, like, caved in and just killed her on the spot because
on a plane? What the
pills that were designed to keep that from happening. Not only that, like once she and
Jesus Christ, dude, this Sheldon guy cannot catch a break. Every interesting person that he runs into either dies immediately or explodes in front of his face. Jesus Christ.
Plane in an evacuation, what you end up having here is like this guy who just kind of like walks up and then he's pushed out of the way by one of the security guards, only for us to find out that what had happened is that this guy had this sort of device around his body that was designed to basically like keep his magnetic powers at bay. Of course, this
Magneto?
Turns out to be Magneto. But when he was pushed out of the way, the dampening field was damaged, and the result is that like his magnetic powers are completely uncontrollable, and it rips out everything. Like it goes nuts. Like the iron in people's bodies is like ripped out of their bodies entirely. It kills them on the spot. Fillings are torn out of Philip Sheldon's mouth. Like guns go flying towards him, and then eventually like the entire plane just comes to like literally gets pulled in by the magnetic abilities of Magneto, and it just like explodes on him and kills everybody in the immediate vicinity. Now, of course, like Philip Sheldon bailed out.
Philip Sheldon manages to make it out. Jesus Christ. What is going on? Why is this person just near a plane? The whole last plane just took him out. Why is he next to a plane in the first place? He should be in a forest, far away from any metals. There's always gonna be metals in like water and rock and things like that, and your body has iron in it, obviously. But he should not be next to a plane.
Really fast. So he got out of there while the getting was good. But then at that point, you switch over to Texas. And this is when we find out how dark Professor Xavier is as president. What he's been doing here is that unlike the main Marvel universe, where he basically takes mutants and then brings them to the Xavier Institute and teaches them how to use their powers, instead what he does is he sends them to like this top secret facility, more or less, that's ran by Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, and they're just like experiments. And so it's crazy because stuff like Cyclops, because of the fact that his eyes are emit optic beams, they didn't know how to control it. And so they basically just like blinded him and singed his eyeballs shut. And it was just like,
oh my God. I mean, that's what you do, right? Like if you're just having constant beams coming out your eyes, it's not like you're just gonna put glasses on. I think the whole superpower the Cyclops has is so tragic because it's not really something that you can turn off, right? He can't just be like, I don't want to have beams. As far as I know, the Cyclops always has beams coming out, and he has to wear like these special goggles so that he can turn it on and off whenever he wants. That's the worst superpower. One that you can't control, which is probably how superpowers would work if we had them in real life. It's not something you could just like turn off and turn back on. I actually think that, some of the things that we could do is like superpowers. Like we have senses, that's kind of superpower, right? Where like we can sense when things are a little off. We have so many senses, and like you could blow air, right? You can blow air. So if you could do that really strong, like what if you had really powerful lungs and you could blow air really, really strong, like gale force winds? Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, that's kind of like a really weak superpower, right?
Damn, I mean, like literally melted his eyeballs closed. Like it's crazy how this whole thing happens. Like Kitty Pryde had tried to escape because she can phase through things, and she got stuck in a wall and lost 3 feet of intestine. Like Nightcrawler's just
oh my god, what? Yeah, that kind of superpower sucks as well. That always scared me about the Lemillion guy from My Hero, which is a guy who permeates through things. Like he can phase through things, he can go through things. That terrifies me, because if you permeate through something and for whatever reason your power just stops working, oh, you're just 6 feet under the ground now. Like you just die. You just die. Put your hand in a wall, it stops working. Oh, you don't have a hand anymore. That sounds like such a scary superpower to have. Just give me like super strength. Just make me, oh no, because then you could like accidentally break someone's hand shaking it. What's a superpower that can't go wrong? If you teleport, what if you teleport inside of like a tree and then your brain explodes? There's got to be a superpower that can't go wrong. Like, what if you could fly, but then your flight turns? Like, what if you like get nervous and you stop flying mid-air and you just smash into ground? There's got to be a superpower that just can't go wrong, right?
Cannibalizing himself. And like Quicksilver lost his arms and legs because the momentum and the friction in the air as he moved, like his arms and legs couldn't handle it. And like the crazy thing is that Xavier will come down there and Xavier will just talk to them, like, or he'll just stare at him, or he'll talk to him or something like that. But like the implication here is that like things are not the way they're supposed to be. They're, like they weren't supposed to turn out this way. That somehow everything got screwed up. And
Quicksilver ran so fast that he tore his own legs off.
So what you end up doing is you end up finding out that, like, for example, Donald Blake is not Thor in this story. Instead, he's a guy who claims to have seen Thor, and he's literally holding like a regular hammer. He's basically a maniac who had essentially just gotten high on some shrooms and never recovered. And so they just kind of chalk it up to him just being stuck in like a hallucinogenic state forever. Emma Frost leads this crazy like religious organization that actually goes through and like adopts the kids of its members and then performs like these brain experiments more or less to like awaken their psychic powers. But she's basically just like a crazy chick. And then you
Does it work?
Blaze. Johnny Blaze actually kind of has the funniest story. Like none of these stories are really funny per se, but like this one kind of is. So like Johnny Blaze, Johnny Blaze is like this daredevil, right? Like much like the main Marvel universe, he's like this stuntman daredevil.
Johnny Blaze, by the way, this is Ghost Rider, like the guy that has like the skull on fire and he rides on a motorcycle. That's Johnny Blaze.
Devil kind of character. What happens is that in this whole like traveling carnival act, he's called Saint John, and he just performs like these crazy stunts. Well, in this one, it's like the last stunt he'll ever perform. What he does is he douses his head in gasoline, sets it on fire, and then like goes to perform a stunt only to die in the process and just ride off into the desert. And like that's the end of him. But like that's kind of the tribute to the whole like, you know, flaming head of Ghost Rider. Like it's so screwed up, but it's kind of nuts.
So Johnny Blaze is not Ghost Rider. He doesn't have a superpower that lets him be Skull Blaze head. He just sets his head on fire and dies.
That's because then what you have is you have Philip Sheldon, who actually ends up in New Orleans, I think, and starts to like dream of this time when everything was different. You know, when the world isn't the way that it is right now. Like he dreams of like a better tomorrow. And it's this whole idea that what he basically ends up dreaming is the Marvel story by Mark Waid and Alex Ross, where it's like this age of heroes and like everything was the way it was supposed to be, you know, and like Captain America is a champion of the people and Tony Stark helped to form the Avengers and mutants and all these different beings are like saviors of the world, you know, helping to protect from like these various threats that exist out there. But like that doesn't exist. And so what we do, you know, for this last little tidbit of the story, we pick up with Ben Grimm. Now, this is kind of the coolest thing because we basically get this explanation of what went on with the Fantastic Four. So in the main Marvel universe, the Fantastic Four, as we know, Reed, Susan, Johnny Storm, and then of course Ben Grimm had basically taken off into space.
Ben Grimm is like he's the strong guy. He's the strong guy in the Fantastic Four. He's like the, what do they call him? The rock, the stone guy, the Thing. That's what they call him. But he's the Thing.
They were hit with cosmic rays. They fell back to Earth, and of course, they gained their powers. Instead, what ended up happening here is that in this particular story, or at least in this particular universe, that when Reed Richards wanted to take off, when he was like, "Hey, we want to use this vessel and fly into space," Ben Grimm's response was, "This thing's not ready. Like, you do not have maneuverability on this
It's gonna
vessel.
blow
Like,
up, isn't it?
Just a rocket firing in a forward direction. What you need is the ability."
Oh, it's gonna perpetually go forward. There's no way they launch a rocket that doesn't have a way to come back or turn around, and it just perpetually goes forward forever. There's no way.
Like maneuver and move around so that if you start running into problems, you can evade them. But Reed Richards didn't want to do that. Instead, what he wanted to do was immediately get into space and chart as best he can. Now, the indication here was that this was in response to the Russians, or at least the idea was that it was basically the Great Space Race.
This is like the Titanic submersible. They're just like, yeah, no, we'll cut some corners. It'll probably be fine.
And they wanted to get people into space before the Russians. And so instead of having Ben Grimm pilot the shuttle, they basically got like Victor Von Doom, who there's really no indication here that he's like Dr. Doom, dabbling in like magic and mysticism. Instead, he's just one of the people who worked there. But when they fly the shuttle into space, they're hit with cosmic rays. The difference here is that Johnny Storm, he does set on fire and he burns to a crisp. Like Susan Storm is really just kind of like there. Like she was basically invisible, turned her eyes to glass, and like she was completely and totally blind. No one knew she was there until like she tripped over her brother, or you know, or somebody tripped over her.
Oh my God, she turns invisible, but her eyes turn to glass and she can't see. Jesus Christ.
And then like Reed Richards was basically able to stretch, and then rigor mortis set in, so he's just like this elongated corpse more or less. And the craziest thing with Dr. Doom, they don't show you what happens to Victor Von Doom, but the idea here was that he had basically just turned a mineral, like he turned inside out, that like his organs were on the outside of his body, and then they became like a hardened mineral, and like he just somehow landed back on Earth or something along those lines. But it's crazy because Philip Sheldon has basically been dying this whole time, and you end up finding out the reason why he's dying is because Peter Parker had like exposed himself to, you know, this really screwed up virus in an effort to like gain powers, and the result is that like his physical form is all like screwed up and terrible and like disfigured. But because of the fact that Philip Sheldon had met him when he was younger and then shook the hand of Peter, the illness passed on to him, which has basically been killing Sheldon the entire time. And then
oh my God. Peter Parker, instead of developing spider powers, just gets radiation poisoning.
Sheldon just dies and the story ends. That's
Jesus
it.
Christ.
It's the least grand ending ever. But it's like the small things in there, like Amora the Enchantress, who in the main Marvel universe is designed to be like a very luscious and full-figured woman. She's an adult film star in the Marvel Ruins line of comics, and like I think she kills her manager or something like that. There's a lot of things that you don't learn though. Like I don't think you ever learn about what happened to Loki. I don't think you ever learn about like how Asgard works or anything like that. But it is like this
probably doesn't exist.
This is just depressing as hell. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section about this whole.
This is the most ridiculous thing ever. I'm pretty sure this is a parody made by one of the writers that works at Marvel that made other things. And he was just like, I'm just gonna really make some horrible stuff, dude. I'm gonna make some real terrible stuff. Like the disease Peter gets makes his skin look like the suit. Like it's goofy and it's silly and it's edgy for the sake of edgy, but it actually has thought put into it where it still relates back to the original powers that they have, like the Spider-Man suit on Spider-Man, but he just has radiation poisoning and dies. Like they go into space and they turn into the Fantastic Four, but it also kills them immediately. Quicksilver runs too fast and his legs rip off. Bruce Banner gets hit with the nuke and turns into an incredible tumor Hulk instead. Like it's just so silly. It is actually so. The weirdest thing that happens in this is the California secession plan that Captain America joins onto. Really have no idea what's going on with that. But it was a really good video. If you have a video that you'd like me to react to, let me know in my Discord server. It's down in the description. Bye!